Welcome everybody to a new episode of the European Wrestling Podcast. Today my guest is from Belgium. He's a young and wild, very talented guy. His name is Rammy and it's a pleasure to have him here today. Are you ready? I am, so let's do it.
European Wrestling Podcast.
Hi Haran, it's a great pleasure to have you here at the European Wrestling Podcast. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you very much for having me. Let's have a good time together, buddy. Let's go for it.
So before talking about your career and your life around pro wrestling, I would like to ask you, how was growing up in your country? Talk about a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I grew up in Brussels, capital of Belgium, right? And I grew up in quite rough neighborhood. It's called Anderlecht. For those who also watch football, it's like the main club. You know, that's what it's known for, Anderlecht, the football team, right? So I grew up there. I was raised by only my mom and my two sisters. So I was the baby boy, right? I didn't really have a father figure or anything. So I guess somehow I started watching wrestling and I was seeing all those guys, big guys. And since I was only surrounded by women, I took those people as a father figure, or whatever, like inspiration to be a man myself. You know what I mean?
And so, how did you fell in love with wrestling? How it happened? Did you have any specific memory, like maybe one single match that you were like, "Hey, this is pretty cool," or something that happened?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just zapping around the TV, right? I didn't know what wrestling was, and all of a sudden, I came across that TV show. It was called. I probably heard about it. It's Sunday Night Heat, right?
Yeah.
So it's basically just the sum ups from whatever happened on Raw at that time, and I was just seeing those guys in that ring. I didn't know what it was. They were just wearing underwears and slamming each other and jumping from top ropes and things like that. I was like, that's not really boxing, man. They don't have gloves on or whatever,
How
And I
old
was
were you?
hooked. I was 10, man. I was 10 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 10 years old. I had never heard about wrestling. We didn't have any wrestling on TV at that time. And I was, I remember, on a Monday night. So basically 11:30, something like that. I was a 10 years old boy going to school the next morning. And I couldn't miss a single episode. There was no way. And the very first match I watched, by the way, was Crash Holly and D'Lo Brown.
Yeah.
That was the first match, yeah.
We both grew up in a country where professional wrestling is not part of the culture, and people don't really know what wrestling is. But I remember back in the days, in the mid '90s, all the kids were talking about wrestling, and the same thing happened in 2003, I guess, when they came back with the Heat and then SmackDown later. I'm talking about Switzerland. I mean, South Switzerland, this area close to Italy, which is we depend a lot of from Italy and South Switzerland because we only have a couple of channels here, so we watch their TV, and so what happened in their country pretty much happened in our country as well. So
Yeah,
I remember back in 2003, 2004, wrestling was still not part of the culture, still something that people don't take serious, but it was a huge, like, it was all the gadgets, all the t-shirts everywhere, wrestling was everywhere. And so I was in your country. Of course it's not part of the culture, but there was any time in those years that it was pretty big, that people were talking about, maybe on TV or newspaper.
Yeah, actually, no, it was completely different because I remember when I was like that 10 years old kid, we didn't have any gadgets, we didn't have any T-shirts or anything. You had to order everything on internet, on whatever, online, like even the video games. At that time, it was like SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth. Remember this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember I had to order it on online because you couldn't find it in here, and it's not before 2000, probably 2007 or even 2008 when you started seeing gadgets and things like that, like action figures in the stores and even video games and things like that. But before that,
So we
I
take a
don't have
break, and
memory of seeing
I'll catch you
anything
later.
in about wrestling somewhere. And I think what changed the thing is that WWE didn't come in Belgium from I think 2000 no 1993 until 2005 2006. So that's a huge gap. And once they came back with the Undertaker, John Cena, and all those people, and all of a sudden more people were into wrestling, I think, because you had commercials everywhere and things like that. So yeah, it helped boost the wrestling business in Belgium a lot when they came back.
In 2009, TNA came to Belgium. Did you go there to watch the show?
When was that? In 2005?
No, I think no. TNA was in 2009. Yeah,
Oh
2009.
no, TNA, no. I've never watched wrestling yet. TNA live. I've watched like maybe 10 shows my whole life of TNA. Of Impact Wrestling. I didn't really watch TNA. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just can't watch it. I don't know why.
I was asking you because I was there. I didn't wrestle, didn't had anything going on in the ring, but I was backstage because, as you know, my trainers Baba and Devon, they've been in TNA for a while in those years, and so between 2009 and 2014. I have been in many TNA shows on backstage, thanks to them that they always let me go in. And it was very cool to learn stuff behind the scene and everything. And I remember being in Belgium as well. And so let's keep going. And so as you said, you became a fan back in 2002, and then through the years you have been keep going and watching wrestling, playing video game about wrestling. And when did you make the decision that was something that you may try to do?
Actually, I made the decision very, very young. Like I would probably say when I was 10 years old. You're still a boy, right? But when I became a teenager, then I was like, man, this is what I want to do. That I want to do that. I want to be a professional wrestler. Thing is, usually when you say things like that, nobody believes you. Like
Yeah, of
not even,
course.
yeah, of course not, right? Not even your own family, and which is okay because they see that as a dream, something you can never make it happen, especially in a country where there is no wrestling. So so yeah, it was just impossible. So I was starting to tell everybody I wanted to be a wrestler, but then nobody believed me. Everybody was thinking like, oh no, he's just dreaming. No, you're gonna be, I don't know, like informatician or work in IT, whatever. I was like, man, I don't want to do that, man. I want to do elbow drops and things like that. Yeah. So at some point I started. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I kept it secret in my mind. I didn't tell anybody. And it's not until 2013 when I started into wrestling, when I started wrestling, like training into wrestling. And even then, when I started, I didn't tell anybody. Like nobody was aware of that. Nobody was aware I was training, to become a professional wrestler. And what I did was basically I told everybody, like all my friends, my family. I told them, hey, you know what? I got a big surprise for you guys. I remember it was November 30th of 2013. I said, you know what? I got a surprise for you guys. Here's the address. That's the time. Please show up. Yeah, it's true story, man. Like, true story. They had no idea, and I was spending a lot of time in the gym, so a lot of people was thinking maybe I was doing like some bodybuilding competition, whatever. But I wasn't built enough to be a bodybuilder anyway. So I told them, yeah, just show up, whatever, blah 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 blah. And they came over and they saw Ring, and they were like, "Oh, are you the promoter?" And I was like, "No, man, I'm not the promoter." And what are you gonna do? No, I'm not gonna tell you. You'll see. And then all of a sudden, they see me coming out of the curtains with only underwears on, and they were like, "What the hell is going on here, man?" And that was the best feeling ever. That
What
was
that was that your first match ever in front of the
the
crowd?
first match ever. Actually, that was the very first time I stepped into a ring. Not even for training because we didn't have a ring to train on. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know how to run the ropes. I learned in the match, man. I learned in the match. But it was so much fun. It was like a 4 minutes match or something, right? but it was, for me, that was like WrestleMania. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's great. And how was the reaction? I mean, after the show, what did they say?
Well, during the show, actually, they popped, man. They popped. It was probably the biggest pop I've ever had. You know, they popped like it wasn't a lot of people, like maybe 50 or 60 people, and 70% of them were from my friends and my family. You know, so it was the best feeling. And afterward, everybody was like, "Oh man, this is crazy. That's your dream. Your dream came true. Blah 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 blah." And yeah, all of a sudden, I remember I was, after the show, I went for a drink with my best friend, and I was like, dude, that was my childhood dream, man. I'm 21 years old. I just accomplished my childhood dream. I was like, what the fuck? It's crazy, yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. And so before stepping to the ring, of course, you have been trained by somebody. So you want to talk about who trained you, where, how was the process to get into the training? How did you felt in the beginning? Like this is super crazy. This is it wasn't like I expected. Maybe I shouldn't do this. How was the
Yeah.
beginning? Who was your trainer? Where? When? How?
All right. Actually, when I was a teenager, I had everything planned, you know, and as you could guess, nothing went according to the plan, right? So, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna finish my studies first. I have a degree in tourism, and it's only 3 years, studies, so it's not long studies. I was like, once I'm done with it, I'll just go to Japan. And then I'll go to Mexico, and finally I'll go to the States and work for WWE. That was my plan, right? That's what I was seeing everything. And then once I was done with my studies, I actually started working, but working in Spain, right? And then when I got back, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything, and I was like, okay, so maybe this is the right time to do what I really wanted to do, right? But I was broke. I couldn't go to Japan or anything.
Yeah, of
So
course.
yeah, so I checked on Google, and I found out there was actually a lucha libre school. So it wasn't it was written lucha libre. So I was like, you know what? It's similar to wrestling, similar to WWE. So maybe I could pick up something from there, right? So I went to that school. It's called Brussels Young Wrestling Style, and the main trainer was it was a Congolese wrestler. His name is Shaolin. And so I met the guy, and so we started talking a little bit, and then he said, all right, come next week for whatever, blah blah blah. So I went there, and I was scared, man. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared because, it's I was expecting that time my whole life, and I didn't know what I was really getting into, right? So I got there, I got into that training room. It was no ring, nothing, a bunch of youngsters over there, very young people, maybe just one older guy. That's it. And then they showed me how to bump, and man, at first I was scared, and then I was like, you know what? If I want to make this happen, I can't be scared. I got to go through this, right? So I started bumping and things like that, and I learned to bump in like maybe 2 3 sessions. That's it, which was really fast. So it took me 2 months, 2 months of training to do a basic match, right? It wasn't something
Yeah.
crazy. It wasn't something crazy, but it took me 2 months of training, and then they had their show coming up. So they said, you know what, we're gonna put you on the show. I was like, okay, man, let's do this. Let's
Let's
do
do
this.
it.
Let's do this. Yeah, 2 months later, I was doing my very first match, and I was actually getting paid for it, which is quite surprising. So yeah, I had like $20 or whatever, but still, it's good, man. It's good. I enjoyed it.
And when you look back, your first match nowadays that you have been learn certainly a lot of things in the past years. How do you
Yeah,
feel? Because personally, when I look back my couple of first year
yeah,
or in wrestling, I'm like, what I'm doing. Like, I mean, technically, I was good from the beginning because I got trained in Canada, so I knew
yeah,
all the technique, all the moves, everything. I could jump around, do everything perfect. But anything that I was doing what made any sense. So zero psychology. And
exactly.
it took me a while to figure out. And when I finally figured out, I went to the Team 3 Academy with Baba and Devon, and they told me, No, you gotta start over again
Yeah.
and then relearn again in the American way, and then finally I got it. But it took me a very long time to actually figure out. So, how was for you?
Same problem, man. Same problem, actually. The moves were safe. Everything was very safe. The moves looked kind of good. It wasn't perfect, but kind of good. But there was no psychology. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing moves after spot, like after spot, after spot. But the thing is, I got lucky. I got lucky because without knowing it, I had like a shine and a heat and a comeback spot and things like that. But it wasn't on purpose, It was an accident. So it was. But the moves were safe, and it was like a 4 minutes match, and I was like. At that time, I thought it was great, but when I look at it now, yeah, of course it's bad, because it's really bad. But still, that was my very first match. I was like, you know what? It wasn't that bad for a first match. Of course, I would never send that footage to any promoter, but but it wasn't. In my opinion, it wasn't that bad. It could have been a lot worse, I think.
It also depends who is in the ring working with you. If you have somebody that can lead you
Dude,
and
they had
just
no idea either. They had no
yeah,
idea, man.
that's
None
the
of us
point.
had, none of us had any idea of what psychology was. We didn't know what psychology was. It was just like putting one move after another, one move after another. We didn't know. We had no storytelling or anything. That's the biggest problem from that time. We didn't know what we were doing. The moves were safe, all right, but then that's
But
it.
that's a problem, when you train, you need to train with the right people. And again, for example, in my case, when I went in Canada, they were great guys, but unfortunately, I was there only 4 months, and they told me we're not gonna give you any discount, so you're gonna train exactly like anybody else. So in the first fourth month, you're not gonna learn how to have a match. You learn technique, moves, and anything. And I said, okay, that's fine, whatever. But then, of course, when I left too early. And when I came back to Europe, like I said, I had anybody to teach me and tell me how to put a match together. And so hopefully I went back to North America several times, and then I finally learned. In fact, when I train my guy here in Lugano, the pro wrestling training Ticino, I teach them a lot of these things. And in just 3 years, or now it's 4 years, they accomplish what it took me 15 years
Wow.
to learn, because now they can have match, they know psychology, they can put stuff together, they can do everything that it takes to have a good match. I'm not talking about great match, because
Yeah.
I told them, I don't want to lie to you. If you want to make it to WWE, you can't just train with me. I can prepare you, but then you have to go in, somewhere in North America and train with some pro that is gonna make you take the first step, the next step. But when it comes about preparing you to get there, I think what I'm doing here with my academy is pretty good, because when I watched them, like I said, they're doing what it took me 15 years to be able to do. And so it's important for everybody out there to get trained with the right people, and so make your research. And I invited you to Lugano, not you, Aaron, but I mean you out there listening to the podcast, the European Wrestling Podcast. If you're looking for a place to train, we are working very hard, and I'm working a lot on the psychology side, more than the moves themselves. And so let's go back to your first match. How was your feeling when you came back to the curtain? Like hey, I made it. Like you were excited, or how was? I mean, of course you were excited, but the feeling. Can you
Yeah.
describe the feeling?
Actually, the weird part was before going into the match. So when I was in the gorilla position, right? And the thing is, I had no feelings. I didn't know what to feel actually, because I didn't know that feeling. What is it like to be like in front of a crowd, even if it's only 70 people. If I didn't know what to expect actually. I didn't know what to expect. So I was stressed, but at the same time, I was excited. But it was a lot of things mixed together, right?
Yeah.
When I went through that curtains, I remember I felt good, man. I felt relaxed. I wasn't stressed anymore. I remember I was feeling very comfortable. But the thing is, it was a 4 minute match, but it felt like it was like a 40 minutes match. Man, I was exhausted after it. I was exhausted. But the promoter, which is, in my opinion, the worst thing to do because he wanted to build me as a big guy, right? And he put me right after the first match. He put me into a tag team match, like right away, not even a break or anything. He put me in the tag team match, and I think that was a bit too much because it just wrecked everything. Because the other guys went over, and which is okay because that's wrestling. But if you want to build somebody, you're not going to put him in a big match first, which was an handicap match, the very first one, and then you put somebody over on him on the second match right away in a tag team. So it didn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense. But then when I went back to the curtain, through the curtains, back to the backstage, everybody was congratulating me because it was my very first match, and I think I did okay in their eyes. So I'm feeling very proud, very happy. Over the moon, basically, over the moon, man.
And well, I actually made a mistake a couple of years ago. Because I remember one of my guy, he made his debut, and he was, like you described, he was super excited and super happy for his first match. And when he came back to the backstage, I was so focused on training him and getting better that I completely just forgot that he just had his first match, and I was giving him the feedback as we usually do in the training.
Yeah.
I was telling him, hey, it was good, but when you did the comeback, you should get the crowd first, and then before stand, you make sure this, and then maybe when you did so, and for him, it was like, come on, man, it was like, he came back super excited in the backstage. He was like a slap in the face because
Yeah. Got you.
I
I
was
get you.
just bah, 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 bah. I just tell, but I wasn't mean. It wasn't mean to be offensive or like to be an asshole or anything like that. It's just that I was so focused in getting better that I actually forgot that he just had his first match. So the best is to let him enjoy the moment, not say anything, and give him the feedback maybe the day after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah,
And
that's
so
probably the best thing to.
yeah, that was a little mistake. But then we clear. I mean, I told him that I admit that that wasn't maybe the case. To give him the feedback right there after the match, at least for the match for the first one. Then now, if I do it now, they understand. They don't get mad about it. But after the first match, to have somebody not yelling, but like telling you, hey, you should do this and not that in the way that I do usually when I train people, probably wasn't it wasn't the most pleasure thing. But
Yeah,
anyway, we still learning as a wrestler and also as a trainer,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
and that's the way it goes. And so now, talking about your career, you said you made your debut in 2013, and how is going your career since then?
Oh wow, man, it changed like from A to Z. I mean, in 2013, I had like maybe two matches because well, it was the end of the year anyways. But they just stuck 2014, so I was probably having maybe a match every 3 months, something like that. The really really basic stuff, like in fairs and places like that. Not proper shows, almost never proper shows, right? So which is not enough because I truly believe that okay, training is a thing, but you really learn your craft by wrestling, by working, by doing
Yeah.
shows, right? And so I wasn't having enough matches, and it was too much, too much weight between the matches, right? So actually, it really kicked off in 2015 because all of a sudden I was fed up actually because I was waiting and waiting for bookings because the problem is the guy, my very first trainer, who was also the promoter, he had like a weird mentality. Like he wouldn't help you get bookings outside of his promotions. He would, even if somebody wanted to book you, they had to go through him.
Oh
And
shit, I hate that. Let me
yeah,
stop you right there, because this is something that really pissed me off. And there's a lot of promotion, for example, down in Italy, which is the closest crown country around here, that they have this idea that because I train somebody, then I own them. Like
yeah,
they and many of these promotion, they want you to email them first to get
exactly,
the
yeah,
permission to book one of your guys. But like when I say my guys, I don't really mean my guy. I mean he's the guy that I train, but they are not mine. I told them, I don't want you to go anywhere until you have the first match. But once you had your first match, you're yeah, free to go wherever you want. You are, your own person. I mean, I'm not your manager. I'm not taking care about anything of your stuff. I mean, if somebody wants to book you, he has to contact you, not me. Because I can't say yes or no because I don't own you. It's
exactly.
up to you. So I have completely open freedom. Then, of course, if another promoter asks me about my guys, then yes, I may answer and I may say, hey, I suggest you for your show. This guy is the best one that I suggest you. But it's just talking promoter to promoter. But I'm not managing my guys, and I'm not, like, hey, you have to go through me to get them. What the fuck, man? This is
Yeah,
ridiculous. That's something that I really hate.
I totally agree with you, man, and that's exactly what I was going through, because I wanted to work, man. I wanted to be in the ring, I wanted to be in the ring. And the thing is, at that time in Belgium, there wasn't any big guys. I'm not a big guy, but I was bigger than most people, right? And there wasn't anybody like me, so I could get a lot of opportunities, right? But it just never happened because he was telling us. I remember very clearly he was telling us, no, you should never contact promoters. They should contact you or at least contact me. Otherwise, if you contact them, that's going to lower your value. That's fucking ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But when you get into a business and you don't know nobody, you're going to trust 100% the only person that is supposed to be the best for you, right? Which is your trainer. So for a whole year and a half, I was just listening to him and say, all right, he knows the business. He's been into the business for 30 years, blah, 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 blah. If he said something, got to be right. That was the worst thing that I have ever done because I think I wasted a year and a half of my life, and still then when I decided to just to leave, man, not even leave actually, just I went for a summer camp or summer training in the UK, right, for WAW, the Knight family.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, man, that was crazy because all of a sudden I was seen in that by that promoter, that trainer. I was seen as a traitor, and he was telling everybody I was a traitor. I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I started talking to people in the UK, like, is it how does it work? Like how wrestling was? Is that normal or whatever? And then I started understanding that no, actually, he's weird. Not That's not how the business works. That's not how the business works. So what he does is it's not supposed to be done like that. And he just wanted to keep us all in the bubble, where he
Yeah.
was the master and everybody around him were his trainees, and we stay all together because we were a team and we are better than everybody else. We were shit at that time, not for real. Seriously, now when I see the footage, man, from 2014, I was like, "Fuck, man! No wonder nobody booked me." Yeah,
Okay, so Aaron, we take a short break now.
sure,
We
no
have
problem.
a couple of sponsors and advertising, and we will be back in a couple of minutes, and I'll see you later.
Yeah, buddy. See you later, my man.
Before we keep going, I would like to take a short break to thank the shieldofwrestling.com for providing this new episode of the European Wrestling Podcast. The shieldofwrestling.com is an Italian website obviously about professional wrestling, and here's some information about the Shield of Wrestling.
Fan del wrestling, ma soprattutto di The Shield of Wrestling. Se volete rimanere sempre aggiornati in tempo reale sugli ultimi avvenimenti del vostro sport spettacolo preferito, allora seguite www.theshieldofwrestling.com. Potete trovarci anche su Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram e perfino Discord. Inoltre, durante la settimana potete ascoltare i nostri podcast su Twitch, YouTube, Spreaker e Spotify. Il lunedì alle 19, a cadenza bisettimanale, troverete Over the Top Rope, il programma di riferimento del wrestling italiano. Mentre venerdì alle 18 vi terremo compagnia con What's Next, il programma dedicato agli avvenimenti del main roster WWE. Tutto questo per offrirvi il miglior servizio possibile, perché non dimenticate mai che we are the Shield of Wrestling! Ah, mi raccomando, non fatevi mancare la nostra app sui vostri dispositivi mobili, così che potrete seguire The Shield of Wrestling in ogni momento.
European Wrestling Podcast.
Welcome back to the European Wrestling Podcast. Today my guest is Aaron, and he's a wrestler from Belgium, like we said before. And so I wanted to ask you about anything else that you want to talk about wrestling in general. Like I said many times in this podcast, I usually don't go over stuff like I don't want to do like Monday Night Raw review. I don't want to talk about anything specific. But maybe if there's anything like, for example, do you still watch WWE or do you still watch wrestling in general? What kind of wrestling you watch? What kind of wrestling you like?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I haven't watched wrestling for a while. Not because I don't like it, just because it's 2 hours long or something like 3 hours, and unfortunately I don't really have time for it. So most of the time I usually watch the highlights you find on YouTube, right? And just you gotta stay on point, like what's going on more or less, But I haven't watched a proper show. I think the last one I've watched was probably WrestleMania. So you can guess that was a long time, right? Like
I'm actually wondering who has time, because pretty much every of my guests that I had in a podcast, they always say the same thing: it's too long, I don't have time. And of course they don't have time, because who has time for watching 3 hours of Raw and 3 hours of SmackDown and then 8 hours of WrestleMania?
And I think
maybe somebody asked that time.
It was WrestleMania, something special. So I would say, you always have time for WrestleMania because it's something special. But I don't know. It's just I think there's too much wrestling, to be honest. There's too much. Maybe it's a good thing for business. I don't know. But it's just like too much is never a good thing. Like you have like how many shows they got now? 6 shows. Like we got Raw, SmackDown, we got NXT UK. What else you have? I think it's a bit too much, and you need to miss it a little bit. You know what I mean? Because to get that excitement, I remember when I was a kid, it was exciting because you had to wait a whole week to get to the next episode or something, right?
Yeah.
And now it's just, I don't know, it's just too much, I think, in my opinion. So that's why you lose that attraction you get to the show itself.
I think the problem is that the amount of wrestling that is out there, it doesn't fit the amount of people interested that is out there.
Yeah.
Because if you think about soccer, there's so many championships. There's one in German, there's one in French, there's one in Italy, there's one in UK. There's a lot of soccer games going on in Europe. But because there's so much people that watch soccer, they still feed the stadium. And they still, But I think maybe now when you say that we have too much pro wrestling going on, you mean that probably there's not enough people to feed all that much of wrestling.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying? There's too much wrestling compared to how many people are interested in wrestling.
Yeah, that's maybe the case. The thing is, and most of the time, I get the impression that it's not what it used to be. Like when you look at Eddie Guerrero.
It's not an impression. That's the reality.
Yeah, exactly. When you look at I don't know, like 2000. I will talk about my era, like the 2003, 4, 5. The Eddie Guerrero, even Chris Benoit and Shawn Michaels and people, Rob Van Dam at that time. Shelton Benjamin. Those matches were crazy. Were very good. It looked, first of all, it looked real. And then, not all the time, but most of the time, it looked very real, very legit. And those guys, they looked like wrestlers, man. They looked like athletes. They looked like people who whoop your ass if you talk back to them and things like that. These days, I don't know. There is just something, something not working. I think. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. It's just like back in the day, there was like superstar. You could tell those guys were superstars. Today is not the same thing. It's not the same thing anymore. It's not the same vibe.
Well, it's not easy to fit all those hours of TV just when we talk about WWE. So, and it's hard to push a guy and make everybody please. Also, now there's a lot of more people complain. It used to be people complain about John Cena back in the days, but then more if you go further back in the days, there's always somebody complain about something going on, and people are never happy. But I remember your era, 2002, 2003, 2004. To me, it was already not like it used to be for me. I still like much more the mid 2000 than nowadays. But if I have to pick. If I have to go to an island or in the middle of the desert and I can bring one WrestleMania DVD with me, that will probably be WrestleMania 10. I don't think I'm not gonna bring any other one, or maybe WrestleMania 12. One of those, because that's the time where I got into wrestling. And I think for everybody is the same. The time you got hooked in wrestling, that will be forever in your eyes the best wrestling that was around. And I guess the people that were young in the 80s, I mean not young but like more teenager in the 80s, they probably didn't like the mid 90s. And the guys in the 70s, they didn't like the mid 80s. And I think something is connected with the generation that. So it's kind of hard to judge what's going on in wrestling today. But I agree that probably there's too much going on nowadays. And also in the ring is overproduced, and it's more like a perform than it's. It takes time to describe it. I don't think we can do it in 2 minutes. But I think that as far as I'm concerned, I like much more focus on my stuff than watch and talk and think about WWE. I like more focusing on my product, to my promotion, which is for wrestling live events, and watch other indies at the same kind of level and watch them what they do, and to learn and to to give to my fans something that they will like. Then anything else, is not really my business. So I watched WWE. Like we watched the Rumble last no, it was Monday. We watched Rumble, but it's not really up to me what's going on there. And about promoting, you promote some shows as well, right?
I do, yeah, exactly. We started like in 2018, like 2 years ago now almost, and we wanted to do something. How can I say that? Like for the general public, not just for indie fans, So something. It's a mix between the wrestling from the 80s, I would say, the 90s, and the early 2000s. With gimmicks, with characters. Like people. When you see that, like I'll give you an example. Maybe a Scottish guy, so he's want to get killed. Something very gimmicky. You know what I mean? Yes, that's an example. So because basically people here, they don't know what indie wrestling is. The only thing they know is WWE, and most of them, they know WWE like Hulk Hogan or John Cena. So all the image they got of wrestling is like 2 or 3 people.
But less they know, better it is.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe, yeah. So the thing is, if you bring over, that's my opinion, if you bring over like indie style wrestling, I don't think it's gonna work much for a crowd that doesn't even know what is going on in the ring.
I don't think they sell any tickets, and I'm not sure it works in the ring. I
don't think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you should do is make it. That's also my philosophy in my promotion, is that I have to promote a show that even the most stupid guy in the crowd can understand. Could follow, and can understand the story that we're trying to tell.
Exactly.
That's the main key.
Because look, people they don't know what wrestling is. They don't know what storytelling is. Like you can come up with crazy spots and things like that. They wouldn't even know who's doing the move, to be honest. Most of the time they'll be like, oh, who's hurt? Is this one or this one? So they don't know nothing. Yeah, it's true. It's true. They don't know nothing. So you got to bring them something basic yet clean, and also very important. The wrestler needs to look good. People are not gonna pay to see the guy next door in
Yeah,
underwear
exactly.
in a ring. They
It's
need they want to see characters. They want to see people larger than life. They want to see big guys or like hot chicks or whatever. They come for a show, and that's why I don't think indie wrestling is working very well in the UK, in
Well,
Germany.
of course, we are talking about our crowd.
Yeah,
To make
exactly,
sure everybody
exactly.
out there listening, when I say indie guy, they don't sell tickets. I mean in my environment, in Lugano, Switzerland. Any guy that is a top indie guy won't sell any fucking ticket, not because it's
I
not
agree.
good, but because nobody know the guy.
Exactly, exactly. Same thing in Belgium, I would say, because uh, basically in the UK and in Germany, they also have a wrestling culture. They also have a wrestling culture because the UK, they used to have World of Sport. It was bigger than WWE back in the day, so they know they get that wrestling culture, right? And
Yeah.
so indie wrestling is gonna work over there. And Germany, same thing. They had like those 40 days tournaments in Hanover or Hamburg, I can't remember where. So they get that culture in the wrestling culture. But you cannot just come up in a country that has never been wrestling in it and just bring something, call it something fresh, something new, blah blah blah. You can't bring up something new if nothing was there before. So you know what I mean. So you need to start from scratch and giving the people the basic of basic, and then maybe if you can build a fan base or whatever, and people get more interested into wrestling in your country, then at that time you can maybe come up with indie style whatever. So yeah, that's my opinion though.
Yeah, and that's the way. Well, also promoting is not easy. I made my mistake. You certainly made yours, and it takes
Absolutely.
time. Takes time to figure out. And by the way, for everybody listening out there, you can go check out the Pro Wrestling Live Events YouTube channel, and you can find a match that you had. It was you against Drake Destroyer. You
Yeah.
can find a match, like I said, and the channel. And it was a pleasure to have you here in Lugano,
Thank
Aaron.
you, man. It was very very good. I really enjoyed it. I'll tell it to everybody. I was treated very very well over there. You guys took very good care of me. I enjoyed the match. Drake was good. So and even
Drake is great. I like
yeah,
the guy, and I can't wait to have him in the European Wrestling Podcast as well.
yeah, and also the attitude. I mean, the guy is not big hated or anything. So in backstage, he was very cool, and I like those kind of people. I don't like people who think they're superstars, whatever. Man, we're all on the same ship. So come on, let's work together to make a good show. And he had a great attitude. Also had a good match together, and the crowd was all right. I don't think they knew who I was when I got out, but then we got them clapping and things like that, and it worked pretty good, I think.
Yeah, and like I said back then, I was kind of sorry that I had very little time to speak with you during the show, but hopefully
That's all right, man.
we
Then
spent
we went to Milano together, man. It was fun though.
Yeah, we spend some time on the Sunday. But when I'm promoting my shows, my mind is like I have a billion of things to take care of, and it's always really hard to step into the ring as well. Like I'm not always super happy with my matches in my show because I know I can't really go out there and give the 100% because it takes so much stress to put everything together. And
Yeah, yeah. I feel
so
you, man. I feel you. Yeah, yeah. No worry. Don't worry about that, man. We went. I told you, we went to Milan. I'm still dreaming about that Italian food, man. It was delicious. It was delicious. No, seriously, it was very good. No, I had a really good time, and I feel you, man. We did the same thing last year. We did what was probably the biggest. Well, let's just call it indie, but non WWE wrestling show in Belgium. It was like a 5-star venue. place like that, like covered by TV and things like that. And I had to be behind the scene and making sure that everything was on point, like working with the production team and everything, and make sure the wrestlers are set to do the right thing, blah blah blah. And I also had a match with a boxer, with a fucking boxer. So I had to put up with all that. So I know what it is, man. It's crazy being backstage and in the ring at the same time. If you haven't done it, you just can't understand it. But it's also a good thing because you get to understand business differently, so you can see on both sides of the spectrum. Like being backstage and being in the ring are two completely different things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you get to taste both, you start understanding the business, what is good for the show, for the promoter, and for the wrestler. So yeah, it's all good, man.
Promoting it's something that we really miss. I mean, the knowledge of how to promote. Well, we have some good promoters around Europe, especially in UK, but it's really hard to find them in a way that they can teach you, because like if you want to become a wrestler, you go to a wrestling academy, but if you want to become a promoter, it's harder because there is no academy to become a promoter. So
Exactly.
you need to get close to another promoter and try to learn as much as possible from him. In back in the days in the States was probably easy because there was a lot of territory, and you could, like Vince McMahon itself, he learned from his father, and he also learned from other guys around his father, and many others promoters learned themselves from another promoter. But since Vince took over, all the old school promoters, they pretty much retired, and they're no longer around, and so it's really hard. And now everybody think that just because you have a wrestling ring, you become a promoter.
That's bullshit. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I can see all those guys, man. They buy a ring, and they put it in the back ass of whatever, a bar or whatever. They put two lights on and a curtain. They bring their best friend over, and they think they're promoter. They're not promoters, man. They're killing the business. Those people are killing the business, seriously.
But that's the way it is, unfortunately. And the only thing that we can do is always working on our stuff, and don't worry too much about what's going outside, and just focusing on what we do. And of course, if we think about ourselves and you think about Vince McMahon, there's the entire world in between. But if you want to look up to somebody, Vince McMahon is the one to look up to. And when he was young, especially, he didn't watch anything. Like, he was WWE, his own product, 24/7. He was only focusing on himself and his product, and he didn't care about what's going on in the outside world. And that's what I think. You should focus on your stuff and not just, like I said, sometime I talk about WWE, but I don't really care. I mean, I'm not gonna spend hours talking about WWE and writing and arguing on Facebook, or like I used to do 10 years ago. I'm not gonna waste my time in doing that. I'm gonna invest my time in learning and care about my product and how can I make my product better. Not how WWE sucks or how this guy sucks and how this guy is better. Just focus on your own stuff, and that's the way. To go.
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. You need to have your goals and focus on your goals and nothing else. You're right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So Aaron, to close down the podcast, we always ask I don't know why did I say we. I ask my guests to tell a story, crazy story. You certainly have one. You probably have more than one crazy story about pro wrestling in your life, something that happened.
Well, actually, the first one, I thought you had I saw you had Tom Fulton on the show, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, actually last time in Lugano, I was talking with him about this. I was telling him this story, and I remember we having a drink together, and I was telling him the story. So basically, remember, earlier I told you when my very first trip in the UK for wrestling, it was just me going to the summer camp, right, at the Ricky Knight's World Association of Wrestling, right?
Yeah.
And so basically at that time I was working, I was selling alcohol in the supermarkets. So it was just a job, making a bit of money, right? So
Yeah.
I didn't work the whole day. I worked the whole day. I didn't sleep the whole night. And the next morning I had my coach, because I was only traveling by coach, from Brussels to London, right? And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna sleep all night. I got 7 hours to kill in the bus, right? So I'm gonna sleep in the bus. I'll recover, blah blah. I'm still young. Of course, when you want to rest in the bus, that's the perfect time to have a fucking child screaming just behind your ears. So that was the first problem. I didn't sleep. So there you go. Now 24 hours without sleep, right? I go to London. The only coach available or whatever, I can't remember exactly the reason why. It wasn't before midnight. So I got there at midday. So we got 12 hours to kill. Still no sleep, right? So I'm walking around, man. I look like a homeless guy, walking around with two bags. Oh yeah, I torn my pant, by the way. It's just my crotch is completely torn up. So I'm walking around half naked, butt naked, around London. People were thinking I was, I don't know, some kind of a crazy hobo, whatever. So anyway, I catch that bus from London to Norwich. I arrive in Norwich at 2 in the morning.
Wow.
First time ever in Norwich. I don't know the city or anything. I asked the guy, say that it was a taxi driver. Oh yeah, by the way, I had only 50 euros in my pocket, and I lost half of it early in the day, so I had like 20 bucks. So I asked the taxi guy, the taxi driver, I said, I need to go there, blah, blah, blah. He said, that's not very safe, blah, 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 blah.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did say that, yeah. So basically, he dropped me somewhere in that area to a McDonald's.
Like the Bronx, they don't get any closer. Like, this is as far I can take you.
No, seriously. I mean, he dropped me there. He dropped me to a McDonald's. He said, you should stay here. And he took the last 20 bucks I had. Like, I had like maybe $3 left. So I was like, fucking hell, this is like almost 3 in the morning. Of course, Ricky Knight is sleeping, right? I'm not going to call the guy at 3 in the morning. So I go to that McDonald's. I grab just one, I don't know, like a burger or whatever. I had $3, man. Only $3. So I grabbed it and I slept in the McDonald's, right? 6 in the morning. Ricky Knight finally answers and he said, oh, I'll be in the gym, I don't know, at 9 or whatever. I'm like, okay, 2 more hours to kill, no problem. So I went to the gym. I walked to the gym, and I was there before him. So when he got there, I was just being polite. I was like, yeah, okay, do you need help to clean the gym? He was like, okay, take a broom and come with me. So we started cleaning the gym, man. And before everybody got there, I was the very first student, man. I didn't sleep like, I don't know how many hours now. It was like almost 48 hours without sleep, right? And the very first day, I think we started from 9 to 5 or something like that. It was a lot of conditioning. And we had like Marty Jones coming over or somebody like that. No sleep at all. But you see, when you're at that point, man, you're like on zombie mode. You don't even feel anything. You can bump 50 times. You're not even going to feel anything because you're too tired. But it's not over yet. So now they need to find me a place to sleep, right? So they put me in one of the workers, one of those guys. His name was Aaron too, by the way. His place. So I'm like, okay, where is it? It's like 2 kilometers. You got to walk 2 kilometers to get there. I was like, okay, let's go for it. So I walked there. But of course, since I'm the last guy to get into the house, every coach is taken. Every bed is taken. So I gotta sleep on the fucking floor, just on the last floor. On the floor, like basically floor, like there's me, and that's it, and
Nothing in between.
Nothing in between. And I slept there for 5 days, I think. 5 days, yeah, man. And that was my very, very first trip in the UK for wrestling. I'll never forget that, man.
That was brutal.
That was brutal, man. Yeah, well, paying the dues, I guess. Paying the dues, man.
Yeah, I heard some similar story from other guys that went there. And but yeah, that's wrestling. There's the crazy things that we do for wrestling.
Yeah,
And
and you
there's
know
a
what?
lot of.
It paid off, man. It paid off. Now, seriously, because I learned a lot in that just 5 days over there. I learned so much over there. I met great people. I met really great people, and the Knight family are very, very nice people. And a bit crazy, but nice, you know.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you can be normal and be in a wrestling.
Oh,
The two things
absolutely.
they don't match.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. And you know, it paid off because I don't know, like a month later, I had my very first booking in the UK, and then I was working full time in the UK for LDN Wrestling. So every weekend I was working there, sometimes 10 days in a row, things like that. And that's where I really learned. And then from there, I went to France for 2 years, and then the Indies. You know, it's everything. I think everything started when I took that trip to the UK, when I slept on the floor for 5 days. That changed everything, man. But it was worth it. It was worth it. I wouldn't change anything.
That's a great story. And so before I let you go, I would like to ask you to let the people know how to find you. So your social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, website, wherever you have, just let them know.
Yes, well, actually, everybody can follow me on Facebook at Aaron Achilles Rammy. I usually accept everybody, so we can chat.
Usually.
Usually, yeah, you know, sometimes you don't. Some people, even if you accept them, you cancel them because they start like harassing you, man, sending you like 50 messages a day, or big. I even had a picture of some dude show me his asshole. I was like, fucking, what are you doing, man? I don't know you, boy. Just say hi. You know, so usually I accept everybody. If unless you get like a weird profile picture, so maybe I will not. But you can always follow me on Aaron Rammy on Instagram. That's where I post everything. I usually share my life with everybody else. So I think sharing is caring. So if I usually share my everyday life with everybody. I think if it could inspire anybody for whatever, I'm glad to do it. So you can follow me on there, and maybe pretty soon something on YouTube is coming over. I'm working on it. So I'm not gonna talk too much.
Yeah, keep working. So thank you very much for being at the European Wrestling Podcast. For everybody out there, thank you for keep listening the podcast. Please share this episode as well.
Of
And
course.
thank you again. I'll catch you on the road. It was great to have you here. Take
Yes,
care.
thank you, Luca. Thank you for having me. It was good working for you, the Pro Wrestling Live, and thank you for the podcast and all that. Keep on the hard work, man. You're doing a great job, and it's very good for the business. Whatever you're doing, man. Thank you very much. Cheers. So you guys, see you everybody, eh?
Thank you.
European Wrestling Podcast.
I'm ʀᴏᴅᴏᴜ Belthazar, and you can follow me on Twitter at @Luca_Rusconi. You can also follow me on Facebook on my profile ʀᴏᴜᴜ Belthazar, or my page, which is Belthazar Pro Wrestling. I'm also on Instagram, of course, and it's always ʀᴏᴜᴜ Belthazar. All the episodes are gonna be online on YouTube, and also available on my website, which is belthazar.com. And of course, if you are gonna share this episode, please use the hashtag European Wrestling Podcast. As well, if you have any question, again, hashtag European Wrestling Podcast. Thanks everybody again. I'll see you next week.